Hey, big boy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing very good. I'm doing very excited about talking to a racing legend today, Lyn St James. We are our thoughts are out to Eric. Eric won't be joining us today, not feeling very well. So it's up to you and me to kind of to carry the torch today.
Yes, indeed.
So why don't we just start off with a little shot on goal? Do you have one today? I've got just a question for you for mine, but I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, my shot on goal is patience. All right. So I've got two things I wanted to cover. One being the LinkedIn Live finally, after about 3 applications and almost, I'm going to say a year, if not more than a year, approved my application. So if you guys are out there trying to get on LinkedIn Live, we're going to be taking this show is going to be the next thing that we try to get on there. But it's about patience. They say that they've got all this, people ahead of you. Well, they must really have it. And, from your dealings with LinkedIn that, they seem like they're busier than a one-legged man in a butt kicking contest. So,
yeah, no doubt. I mean, they are proven. They're proven for especially for small businesses like mine and yours, in businesses of all kinds, proven to be great way to interact with other professionals. And sometimes it turns into business as well. So yeah, I've had my own struggles with them, but congratulations on that, Wes.
It took a long time. My second patience is something that in my probably 30 plus years of playing poker, Texas Hold'em specifically. This weekend, I got a royal flush in a game, and that is very, very difficult to get. But not only did I get one, but when the flop come down, I had the hand before it even started. So the feeling of that is so awesome. So patience, is the shot on goal for me. What do you got?
Well, I'll tell you, we'll probably ask our guest about patience because there's someone who probably has a lot of it, especially at very high speeds. But my shot on goal is just a question to you, Wes. I don't know if you saw last week's 60 minutes expose on UFOs.
Yeah.
It was wild that, when you hear like fighter pilots say, oh God, yeah, we see something every week, and now, even President Obama has come out saying, oh yeah, that I believe in them, but I can't talk about them. My question is to you, what do you believe?
Well, I think it would be pompous to believe that we're the only ones in the entire universe, that have anything to do with, the life, so I do believe in them. I've seen the footage of the little, tic tac, that has been kind of the footage du jour, from everybody. I think what's funny about the whole thing is that whether you believe or don't believe, the government has come out and said that, yes, there are UFOs, and yet with all the kookiness, it's not even on the top 2 or 3.
It's maybe that's what makes us so pompous.
Then. I mean, who would have thought in a million years when they're like, yeah, there's UFOs, and we're like, yeah, it seems all right.
It's a humanitarian changing, event, and we're talking about, an extra $300 on unemployment.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, that sounds about right. UFOs.
Right. Well, I want to bring our guest on shortly, but I want to, sometimes I bring props, and this is a prop right here that will probably be very, near and dear to our guest's heart. I was blessed to go to the 2018 102nd running of the Indianapolis 500, which is, if you've never been, it's just an event. So I'm going to just read a little bit about our guest. She was born and grew up in Willoughby, Ohio. Currently lives in Phoenix. Sports Illustrated Top 100 Woman Athlete of the Century. Automotive News Top 100 Woman in Automotive History, invited to the White House by President Reagan, Bush, and Clinton, 7-time Indianapolis 500 driver, Daytona 24-hour champion, and Automotive Hall of Fame award winner, just to name a few. please help me welcome the racing legend, Lyn St James.
You just had to trump my my royal flush, didn't you?
I did.
All right, let me bring on a real champion.
Right.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Lyn, how are you?
I'm good. I want to add to that patience, that persistence. You have to follow patience with persistence, because if you are just patient, waiting and waiting and waiting with no action plan,
Right.
you really got to be persistent after that patience. So I wanted to add that other P to Wes's spot.
Great. Well, you know something. You know, I've done. You know, for every guest, but especially for you, because you and I have a common a love for automotive history and racing. And my uncle David, who was a acquaintance of yours, was a fairly well-known automotive artist and was a fan of yours as well. But I've done a lot of reading and watching of some of the things that you've done, and I'm just blown away. And some of them I didn't even know. But you know, in one of your videos that I watched, you talked about patience. You talked about preparation. You talked about teamwork, strategy, and commitment. Can you talk a little bit about what that has meant to your career? Those things.
Well, I really learned those things through my career and then applied them. You know, it's funny. I mean, I thought I was a really good driver. A lot of people think they're really good drivers. And then I went to driver school, you know, competition driver school, which was an SCCA driver school. And learning how to maneuver a car around a racetrack was mind-boggling, about understanding car control skills, understanding apexes, understanding corner entry, understanding corner exit, understanding braking points, and applying that to the feeling, but also to some actual math. I mean, you know, of really measuring and walking tracks and understanding all this stuff. I mean, it was so much more complex. And then, of course, I got totally hooked and then pursued it. But let's just use the word commitment. You know, like everybody talks about, oh, I'm committed to this or I'm committed to that. And, you know, you don't know what commitment is until you commit a race car to a particular spot on the racetrack. I mean, at speed or at a braking point, I mean, that, or even a turning point, how much steering you put into the steering wheel. Those are where I learned under, you know, with exclamation points, all caps, what commitment really meant, so that every movement in the race car was a commitment. You have to commit that car to that spot on the racetrack. So all of the things that I've read about in books, or that I've tried to absorb in my growth of a person and learn to be a better person, a smarter person, a more successful person, it was really through racing that they all became very, very crystal clear. And of course, then I had to turn around and apply what I learned through racing, how to apply that to life and how to apply that to business. So, you know, making a commitment, you know, saying at some point I said out loud, I think I said it out loud, that I know I said out loud I wanted to drive an Indy car. All I wanted to do was drive an Indy car. I was racing very successfully in sedans, and I was around the Indy cars because we were support races often, and I drool over those cars, and I thought, oh my God, that's like the perfect race car. I just want to drive that race car. And ultimately, Dick Simon, team owner of in IndyCar racing, gave me that opportunity to drive a race car, to drive an Indy car at a racetrack. And then it went so well, and I felt so comfortable in the car, and he was so excited about how well I did. He said, we can do this. And he didn't say, you can do this. He said, we can do this. But then at some point, I had to say out loud, I'm going to race in the Indy 500. I'm going to race Indy cars. And once you say it out loud, then it became a commitment. That because then I had to have the patience and the persistence to chase sponsorship for over 4 years before I got JCPenney as a sponsor for 1992. So, you know, all of those words became, I knew they existed. I knew they were important. I knew what they meant, but they didn't take on meaning until I drove race cars. And then I would turn around and apply them back into my career so that I could propel my career, continue my career, and move my career forward. So, you know, it's just been a journey of learning and a journey of applying what you learn, and actually then having some rewards because you did.
Well, I'll tell you, you grew up when I say grew up in the industry, clearly when it was the Good Old Boys Network. In doing some background on you, one of the things that popped out is this question is, what did Billie Jean King mean to you?
Well, she was a huge hero. I mean, I think when I watched, the first time I was really even aware of who Billie Jean King was in 1973, when there was all the hoopla, and then I ultimately watched when she beat Bobby Riggs on television, along with millions and millions and millions of other people. And I realized this wasn't just a tennis match. This was making a statement for society. It changed the way men think about women. I found out that W.R. Hull, who was the chairman of JCPenney in 1992 when I got them as a sponsor, he remembers watching Billie Jean King beat Bobby Riggs,
Right.
back 20 years before that. So it changed the way many men, not all men, but it changed a lot the way men thought about women. It changed the way many women like myself thought about myself. And a year later, I started racing. I started, going to driver's school with SCCA and got a Ford Pinto and all that. So I think that I know that left an impression on me. If she can do that in front of millions on television, I can certainly go out and pursue something that I passionately want to do. So, and then of course, fast forward about 10 or 15 years later, I got to meet Billie Jean King and become involved with the Women's Sports Foundation, which she founded. So, and then I learned through Billie Jean that my life existence was not about my ability to be successful. It was about pursuing my passion and being successful and then making a difference for others. If you don't use your power while you're competing to help change the world and help change the world for others, you're totally blowing it. You're missing the whole point of it. And I mean, Billie she puts that in your face, and you either get it or you get out of the way. And I got it, I mean, yeah. She's just been an amazing inspiration, she's just an amazing human being.
Well, from a little girl playing field hockey and taking piano lessons for 13 years at the Andrews School for Girls.
Yeah, I went to girls' school from 7th to 12th grade. Yeah.
So in that time, it's funny, because you said Ford Pinto, all right. So I will confess that I did too own a Ford Pinto, but tell the story about how your Ford Pinto became a boat.
Yeah, unfortunately, my very first race after driver's school, same weekend after you complete your driver's school, you get to actually compete in a race, but they put an X on the side of your car to let everybody know you're a rookie. You have no idea what you're doing. Stay away from the girl or the car that's got an X on it. So I was doing really well in the race. I mean, in the sense that I was paying attention and I was hitting all my points on the track, trying to apply everything I'd learned. But one of the things I didn't do was pay attention to my mirrors well enough. And a car came up to pass me that was the overall leader. And it caught me off guard. And I lost control of the car because I had this kind of tunnel vision instead of, focusing and being out and aware of everything around me. I was like this. And I lost control of the car. I spun out and I ended up in a body of water that I thought was a little pond. And it turned out to be a lake. I mean, literally they said it looked like I walked on water. I opened the door, I got hustled out of the car. And by the time I turned around, I watched the car go blub, blub, totally submerged. It just disappeared. And it had to stay there for the rest of the day. And at the end of the day, they took the car. Divers had to go get the car out of the lake. And everybody standing around, myself watching this happen, having a beer at the end of the day. And the guy standing next to me said, "So who was driving that car?" And I said, "I don't know." Didn't have my name on it. It just had a car number on it, So, right. So the car was soaked, and we had to clean it out. We had to tow it home, flat tow it home, and clean it out. And that was my street car. So I had to drive it for months after that with seaweed coming out of the vents. And so it was, it kind of smelled for a long time.
So how do you come back from that? How do you say, I'm sure you were embarrassed by it, but is that just a testament to the commitment that you had for your vision?
Well, it was probably my second lesson of commitment. I mean, the first was just learning about breaking points and, corner entries and all that. But I thought maybe I was going to give up. I mean, I said, maybe I'm not cut out for this. You know, you really want to do something badly and then you go try it and then you fail. You're like, well, maybe this isn't for me, you know, as much as I thought it was so cool and I wanted to do it. And actually my husband at the time, I mean, he said, Lyn, you know, race car drivers aren't just born. It's how hard are you willing to work? How hard are you willing to learn, you know, the skills that it takes? And that's only up to you. And so I had a lot of time to think about it. And that's when I just dug my heels in and said, you know, suck it up. You got the Alligator of the Year award that they never, ever have given anybody. You're going to be embarrassed with this story for the rest of your life, which I am. But meanwhile, it was, you know, sometimes we learn, I think all the time, we learn more from failure than we learn from success. So I had failure early on, and it was something that tested my commitment. And I decided I was gonna be better than that, and I was gonna learn and never do that again.
Now, I watched a movie that about you and setting records at Talladega, and how you worked with other teams like Bill Elliott to build that car. You had already set records before that, speed records for women. But tell us a little bit how that came about, and then tell us, do you still own any speed records for women?
Well, I'll answer the second part because it's easier. I do not own any speed records for women because the last record I had was qualifying at Indy at 225. And that was in, I think, 1996, 95 or 96.
Yep.
And Sarah Fisher went on to qualify 1 year at Indy and did 229. So right. I believe she holds probably that record for the women on a closed course. But back to how I did it, after I set the records in the Ford Probe in 1985, it was a few years later that I realized that I was a factory driver for Ford, but that Ford was actually getting bigger and bigger into NASCAR. They didn't seem to want to be as focused on the sports car racing, which is what I was doing. They weren't even in IndyCar racing, so that wasn't even on the radar. So I thought, well, you know, I race these big sedans. I should be able to drive a stock car. So I got to know Bill Elliott because we were teammates. And we were teammates when we won Daytona. We were teammates at Watkins Glen, you know, so I said to him, I said, Bill, if I can convince Ford and Goodyear to build a purpose-built stock car to take to Talladega to break the records that I already held, would you build the car? He said, sure. So that's how we got together. I think I convinced Ford, I convinced Goodyear. They were coming out with a new body shape with the Thunderbird. The Super Coupe was going to be coming out. And that gave that team, the Elliott team, a chance to have access to the new body in advance of the other teams that they were competing against. So everybody had something to gain. And and it came together, and that car, we went out and we averaged 212.577, which was only like 0.2 of a mile an hour slower than Bill's record at Talladega.
No kidding.
And I mean, and Ernie built the motor, and they said Ernie had a little button. And as soon as I got that close to Bill's record, he hit the button, and then, you know, we dropped a valve, and all of a sudden the engine wasn't running anymore.
Kill switch, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So in 1985, you won Watkins Glen, and that was a race that you didn't get out of the car. Can you talk about that? You know, you were determined to win that race, and you probably took some heat for it, but you wanted to prove that you could go the distance. Can you talk a little bit about that race?
Well, and it wasn't really, I wasn't trying to prove anything.
Okay.
No, really, because this was not pre-thought. I did not think about this in advance.
Sure.
I had a fill-in teammate, Whitney Gantz, really good driver, but he had never been in those cars. So the only time he had was, you know, during practice that weekend. So he was my regular team, and they always were giving me different teammates. But anyway, Whitney was new to the program, new to that car. He was fine, but I did notice that he seemed like his eyeballs were about this big when he would get off, because he's used to running open wheel cars, and this was a heavy car. But I never pre-thought it through. All I know is that the race started. I was the starting driver. And the plan is you come in about midway after you've made a couple of stops already, but you come in halfway to do the driver change. You get tires, you get fuel, you change the driver. I was in a zone. I can only say that I was in the most magical. You have times like that where you just are gliding. You know what I mean? It's just everything seemed to flow. I was just in an absolute zone, and I did not want to get out of the car. I mean, I came in, and I whether I subconsciously thought, I'm not sure Whitney's really up to this yet. I don't know, because I didn't really consciously think about it, but I knew we were leading, and I knew I was in the zone, and I just chose not to get out of the car, which was against team rules. And I remember saying when I pulled out, I remember saying to myself, you better win this race. Made a major decision here. And I did not have the best always relationship with the team owner, Jack Roush. And I always used to carry $20 in my pocket of my race suit, because I knew that if I ever broke the car and I was ever out on the track, I would probably have to find my own way home. I mean, that was kind of in the feeling we had between each other. But anyway, I won the race, and I didn't realize I was going to go down in history as the only time that a female driver ran an endurance race solo and won. I mean, it is in the record books to this day. But it was not pre-thought. I wasn't trying to prove anything. But it backfired. The crew was not there when the race was over, and I went to celebrate with the crew after we got off the victory podium. They had already loaded the car up and left, and they let me know that I broke team orders, and that was not cool. And so they don't give a hoot about that kind of a record. They were mad. And so I learned about what happens. You have repercussions when you go against the rules of what the team wants. But if I had it to do all over again, I'd do the same thing.
Good for you. Good for you. Now, you talked about being in a zone, and this is not a question I had, but can you talk about when you're in that zone, whether it be Indy or stock car or a vintage? Do you hear anything? Is it just quiet? Does it become to that point where you're one with? It sounds so cliche. I was one with the car. I could feel every bump on the track. Talk about that feeling, because I don't think any of us will ever have that feeling.
Well, actually, if you perform well, I mean, I have had that feeling playing tennis. I had that feeling playing tennis where I have hit a serve, and I looked at it was an ace, and I looked at my arm. It was like, I hit that ball. I did that. I didn't feel. I just, it was in the zone of, it placed exactly where I wanted it. I didn't even feel my body hit, or that racket hitting the ball. I remember that happened once, I think, in my entire life. But you definitely hear, you're one with the car. And I've had laps like that. I've had moments like that, where I'll put a lap together, but I've never had multiple laps like that where it's almost like you are always I'm always one with the car, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, many times I'm arguing with the car a lot. I mean, we are one, we are not in what I'm wanting it to do. But in this case, it was the fact that it's like every corner I was hitting my marks. Every corner all my shift points were perfect. It was like I was almost a robot in the movement of making every good decision. It was just I call it in the zone, but in the flow. I was in flow rather than consciously, predetermining everything and kind of getting it done point by point by point. And so, but I've done it, and I think it's possible in anything that you are all of a sudden subconsciously doing things that you need to do, as opposed to consciously reminding, here's my break point, shift to third, up to fourth, you're kind of, instead you're just doing it. You're just in a complete zone of doing it.
We've all had those moments where we get in our car and we're going to drive somewhere, and we start thinking about things. The next thing you know, you're there and you don't remember getting there.
Yeah.
Right. So, daydream in the middle of a 200-mile-an-hour back stretch of Talladega or a road course at Laguna Seca. Talk to us about daydreaming while you're going that fast.
It's not daydreaming. you're recording it, but you're recording it almost subconsciously rather than consciously. So I mean, I've had those times where you drive and you realize, I missed there were three or four exits because I was going to get off for gas, but I was just concentrating so much on something, and then and all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm almost out of gas and I missed the exit. So, but it's not daydreaming. I mean, it is where you are functioning in an automatic. Obviously, the better the automatic performance is. In other words, you're automatically performing everything you're executing everything really well, to the point that you're not consciously having to do it. It's just doing it. So it's not daydreaming. Daydreaming is where you don't know where the hell you're at. I mean, you are, that is, to me, daydreaming is dangerous when you're driving a car fast or slow.
I would imagine. Well, the dangers, and we all know the dangers of automobile racing. And in 1986, you had quite a crash at Riverside, where you got rear-ended. Your car, went completely, head over tea kettle, and it started on fire. What do you remember about that moment?
Oh, I remember the hit. I actually remember the hit because I was just getting ready. We had just gone green after being under a long yellow. Had done a driver change. I had a full load of fuel. Had just gotten in the car after the driver change, and I mean, we were just getting ready to take off. I mean, literally, the green flag flew. We were all going, and bam! I remember that hit in my left rear like it happened yesterday. It's really.
No credit.
And then I remember, I know that I hit Chip in the Jaguar, which was ahead of me because we were running right next to each other when the course went green. The rest of it is a big blur. I mean, I've watched it. My God, I've watched it, a gajillion times on video. But I can't say that I literally remember it. I just remember now watching it. The only other thing I remember was that when it came to a stop, when my car came to a stop, which it had already been upside down on top of a wall, road, on top, all this other, but I didn't know all that. I didn't see all that because all I saw was oil and fuel and dirt and crap through the windshield. I didn't know I was upside down. But when it all stopped, I remember saying to myself, don't breathe, don't breathe, don't breathe. And that was because I saw the fire, and I knew from previous minor fires that if you start to hyperventilate, which you always do when you're in a situation that everything's out of control, you tend to hyperventilate. That's just what our common reaction of our body is. And if you hyperventilate and there's fumes from fuel, oil, fire, and fire extinguishing material, you can burn your lungs. And I had learned that, and this is the power of the mind, the power of our computer-oriented brain. And I just said, don't breathe, don't breathe. Don't breathe, to keep myself calm and to keep my breaths short until I got the hell out of the car. And that's what I did.
That is crazy. So we could go on and on about your racing, and which is just blows my mind how successful you've been. Is it true that milk tastes better in pit lane at Indianapolis?
Well, on Victory Circle. Not at the lake, but on Victory. Yes, it does. I finally got to do it in a vintage race. I know it was only in a vintage race, but I was on the top of the podium at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with my teammate, Bruce Hamilton, and we were drinking milk. And I was like so over the moon. I mean, it was beyond belief, because I've watched every driver. I wanted to pour it on my head. I'm not sure. I don't think I did. Because I know how that's awful. It's like champagne is actually awful in the eyes, but I drank it, and I still have that milk bottle, and it was very memorable, very memorable.
From your reaction, it's like you're right there again, which is amazing. Who are your heroes in automotive racing? Janet Guthrie, Shirley Muldowney, anyone that you would call a hero, led by example, someone you tried to emulate?
There were a lot of those kinds of people that I would I would learn from them. I can't really say I would emulate, but I would try to learn from whoever was doing things well. I mean, literally going back to the IMSA Camel GT days, Peter Gregg, Peter Perfect, they would call him. I would always watch because he won almost every time he was ever in the race. And I noticed that his car was always meticulously clean. His organized shop, the little garage area that he'd be in, meticulously clean. He was always the first car to go out in practice. He would always be the first in line. I mean, it was stuff like that that early on, I would say, learn from the people who are really doing it well and try to figure out what you could incorporate into what you do like they're doing, and maybe you'll be more successful. And so all along the way, there were people like that. Al Holbert. And when I got to the Indy level, it was Rick Mears. I watched Rick Mears he seems to glide around that racetrack, at Indy. And I used to watch many years. I would go to Indy and watch races from those turn 2 suites. And I literally would inject myself in the car. I was, laying over or leaning over the railing, and I would watch and literally be in that car. And then I was on the racetrack with him, and I realized I can't be in his car. I'm in my car, damn it. It's like, so I would try to follow him, and watch his movement on the track. He was smooth, he was fast. And then out of the track, out of the cockpit, he was very understated, very, very humble. And so it was those kinds of people that I would, if you call them heroes, I guess, yes, but I call them more, they were my mentors, and they didn't know it,
Right. Well, like I told you in the pre-show, my Uncle David, I was able to, with Uncle David, connected as he was, meeting Rick Mears, Bobby Rahal, Danny Sullivan, AJ Foyt, Roger Penske, just the who's who of at least that decade's, racers. It was a blessing. You're going to be honored in 4 days at Amelia Island. Can you talk a little bit about what that means to you? It's a concours d'elegance down in Amelia Island, and you are an honoree this year. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, Timmins is huge. I'm still soaking it in, and it hasn't totally happened yet, even though I just saw the program. And it's funny, I just saw the program. I wish I had it. I just saw it. It's downstairs. Which has my caricature of my face, drawing, which made me actually think of David, because of the art that he used to do. And then it has 4 of my race cars that I kind of, made history with from Daytona and from Indy and Sebring. And the people that have been, this isn't a unique concours, because most concours it's all about the cars. And even though this has some amazing cars, Bill Warner, the founder of this event, always honors a race car driver, and a race car driver of significance. And they have been my heroes. I mean, they have been Sterling Moss, Mario Andretti, Derek Bell, Brian Redmond. I mean, the guys that have they're the icons.
Right.
And I've come as a judge. I've been to this event many times. I never ever, and I'm such a goal-oriented person, but I never once went, oh, maybe one day that'll be me, or, I would really like that to be me. I just never put myself in that category. And so when Bill called me and told me, I was stunned. I was actually speechless. And he said, does that mean you need to think about it? I said, hell no. But I said, why you're doing this, So it is probably the biggest honor that I've had in my career, seriously, because it's recognition from the industry and from the sport that I love and that I've been involved with for over 40 years. So it is a high point. It is a high point in my career. Yep. And he told me 11, and then 1 fell out. So I think he has 10 of the race cars that I have raced that are going to be assembled here. And when he told me, I said, Bill, promise me you didn't get the Pinto. So I hope the Pinto's not here.
Well, the Pinto should be in some museum, that's for sure. Can you talk a little bit? Well, I got a question. We also have a mutual friend and client of ours, Kevin Bobbitt at iRacing. I'm blown away. I've been working with them since 2007. And I'm just blown away with the quality of their race simulation. I know that you've been involved with them. I know that you've gotten behind the wheel several times, and there's some stories behind that, I'm sure. But can you talk about what they've been able to do to help, even during a pandemic, push motor racing down the road?
when they were first out of the box and they first announced what they were doing and all of that, I mean, we were a little bit, kind of skeptical, I think. They have made such a contribution to our sport by access, by making it accessible to so many people, by helping the real professionals like myself learn new tracks, learn technology, be better prepared when you go to the track, because it's very hard. I mean, they have made such a huge contribution to the sport. And the technology back then, when they first started, well, to go out there and laser photo every track now, almost every track around the world, it's huge, And then they were kind enough, and Kevin Bobbitt was kind enough to let us bring our driver development program there one year and let our drivers, experience that. So I can't thank them enough, to be honest, for the contribution that they've made to the sport.
That's amazing. And I agree with you 100%, especially during COVID when they were and again, Kevin, I spoke to Kevin yesterday and he said that they're actually going to be on Fox, even though we're getting towards the end of what, is, being secluded, they're actually going to be on Fox continuously, which is great.
Well, I think they changed the game when they created the technology or launched it. They didn't create it, but when they put it together and launched it, right. And then we're obviously able to take advantage. Everybody was able to take advantage of that technology during COVID, but it's changed. That's also changed the game going forward. I think we've learned more about how to do things in the COVID period, that going forward, we're not just going to throw all that back out. We've got new ways of now communicating with fans, new ways of actually competing. And so I'm glad to hear that. And that's really super cool.
Yeah, they're big fans of yours.
I
will. I certainly will. He might be watching. He knows you're going to be on today. Talk about what you've got going on now. I read some things about what you said. Now that you've done it, you're trying to give back. And the question is it more fun to win a race or help someone win a race?
Well, it's been so long since I've actually won a race or had that feeling. I can tell you there is probably nothing to replace that, but I can tell you that watching these other drivers, young drivers, other drivers that I've worked with over the years, go on to be successful is incredibly rewarding. I mean, it really is. So I, again, through Billie Jean King's leadership, have learned that's where my real strength is, or as an athlete, that's where we are. That's where we have our strength. While I was competing, I had a driver development program. So, from 94 to 2013, I had a driver development program, and my last 500 was in 2000. So I was still trying to groom the next one, while I was still trying to make the history myself.
Sure.
But I looked back recently and realized that even though there's so many more young girls competing in all different types of motorsports, it's so hard when you get to that pro level to be able to sustain into the next season. The worst time for any race car driver is the end of the year, because you have usually no idea what you're doing the following year. And I'm talking any race car driver, not just women. And you start from ground zero. You're starting all over again, no matter how good or bad your season was the previous time. So that's where I wanted to do something. And so what we've done, and I'm working with the sanctioning bodies right now, is to create a contingency program where we keep track of your points based on how well you're racing throughout the year, and whoever gets the most points gets a funded support program, yet to be defined the amount, but big enough that you can then have that to negotiate into next year. So you can start talking to teams in December that you've got some money in your pocket to talk to them for the next year. And I think that's a critical time. And it's a time that we need because we need to have the Catherine Leggs, the Haley Deegans. I mean, no matter how good you're doing, that sponsor deal, if that sponsor deal doesn't carry you to the next year, you're starting from ground zero. And that will help tell the young up and coming drivers, new drivers, that there's something to shoot for, because I think every driver feels like they're trying to, recreate their whole life all over again. So we're trying to attract more women into the sport, but also I want to reward the ones that are in it doing really well.
That really is amazing, and it seems to be your life's work to promote women in racing. Could you throw us a couple of names of women to watch?
Well, definitely. Well, we know we're watching Haley Deegan. Courtney Crone is a sports car racer right now. She's running in the IMSA LMP3, but she has definite career aspirations in it to go to Indy. Hannah Grissom, Lonnie Unser, who's running right now in the Mazda series, and she's from the Unser family.
Is she really? That's amazing. Yeah.
Sabra Cook is a very talented American driver and engineer as well, but she's competing in the W Series, but has aspirations to go to IndyCar. So, Sabra Cook for sure, Courtney Crone, Hannah Grissom, Lonnie Unser. Those are just off the top of my head some of the ones that I know that I'm watching and that we have on our roster. So
that's great.
They're out there.
Well, I've got two more questions, and then we'll let you out of here. And I can't tell you how much I really do appreciate you being with us, and I'm thrilled for your honor that's coming up. And these are a nod to Eric, because Eric normally asks these questions, right?
Oh.
So I'll give you the hard one first and the easy one second. What are you insecure about?
What am I insecure about? Ooh. Well, I'll just tell you, I guess. My looks. I've never felt like I had anything going in that area. So
I disagree. You have a smile that lights up a room, no doubt.
Well, I know I've learned that my nose, and I can't help it because that just comes, it's just there. But I mean, it's what I loved about racing was that I was no longer judged by how I looked. Females are so, at least back in the 70s and in those time frames, but it hasn't changed all that much. There's still a nod always goes to the really, really good looking chick, and I've never ever, so I'm insecure about it. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I got it. That's an honest answer.
You answered it honestly, and your driving spoke for itself. Last question for me. What are you reading?
Oh, that's one thing I love about where I'm at in my life time-wise is that I have time to read. Well, I just read for the second time Go Like Hell. And AJ Baines, I just missed so much of it the first time. And so and it was really the foundation for the movie, Ford versus Ferrari.
Right.
And then because I was interested in his writing, and I found out that I just finished reading the book on democracy, and I'm now just getting started on the Accidental President. I don't read fiction. I read, and those are not really fiction. They're history books about subjects that he has really, really spent a lot of time studying, and it's about Truman. So those are the last three books that I've read. They're all by AJ Bain. I've read 11 of Anne Merle Lindbergh's books.
Okay.
Charles Lindbergh's wife, Anne Merle Lindbergh, was an amazing woman. That she was a pilot. She was the first licensed female glider pilot. She went with him on all those trips that he took, and I mean, she was just fascinating. And she was a writer herself. I mean, and then wrote a lot of diaries and raised a bunch of children, and you just learn about the world and about world history through her eyes because she was living it. And she wrote beautiful prose and poetry, and I loved her. I just love it. So I've read 11 of her books.
And you have a book as well, if you'd like to promote that.
Well, I do. I wrote a book. It's called The Ride of Your Life. It was first called The Ride of Your Life, and now it's called An Incredible Journey. I got the rights back. I wrote it. It was published by Hyperion. I didn't like the title. I didn't like the cover. They said you can have it back. So I got it back, and I retitled it and different cover, but it's pretty much my racing story from the early days of my racing all the way up through my final days at Indy. So yeah.
It's an incredible story, and
it's been an incredible journey. So
there you go. There you go. Well, again, congratulations on Amelia Island. That is amazing, and congratulations on an amazing career. And thank you for all you're doing for the sport and for young women in the sport. I think that is amazing.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you for reaching out. Really, thanks for reaching out.
Well, like I said, my Uncle David was always a big fan, always spoke highly of you. And so it's kind of like meeting one of my uncle's friends. And he was a good friend of mine as well.
And we were friends. We loved chatting. Yep. All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Okay. You too.
Bye.
Bye.